Ouh, please, please work. Ouais, ouais, c'est en train d'arriver. C'est en train de se... Voilà, ça y est. Okay, good morning, everybody. We are this morning on a Thursday, the 16th of January already. Happy New Year to everybody. I think I haven't seen anyone since the 25th or the 26th of December. So, good morning to everyone. You find us on all the different channels to be YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and X, Twitter. And then you've got the podcast on different podcast channels. I'm not going to list them, but please, for those who are watching on YouTube, subscribe because I just still don't see a lot of traction going on YouTube. So please subscribe. The name of this show is You Change the World, right? It's very ambitious, but it's true. You all change the world. And especially one person that I know is changing the world every single day, and that's Pierre Gervois, our guest today. For the third time, he is so kind to join me, and welcome, Pierre, to be our guest today.
Thank you. Welcome, Andre. It's always an absolute pleasure to be on your show. Thank
Yeah,
you for
thank you,
having
thank
me.
you. Yeah, so let me tell you why I had this idea of inviting Pierre again, starting the year on a good footage, right? And talking about creativity. In fact, creativity is a very interesting concept for leaders because we are here talking about leadership, influence, impacting, but especially about inspiration. For me, leadership is to be an inspiring person. And by being inspiring, you engage. And when you engage, people get motivated, get productive, and can really be changing a lot of things in this world to the better, of course, to the better. So Pierre is an artist is one of the rare person I know to be an artist really in his DNA and discovered himself to be fairly early in his age, but he had to do a lot of compromises. So I have to introduce him this way that he was in the business world. I met him, in fact, in the context of business, but he was going against his will. So I'm not going to have him repeat what he said the first time we met here on this show. But I want to just introduce him as someone who comes from the same country and speaks the same language than I do in French because that's our a native language. But we moved here. He lived in different countries. One of the most challenging one, I think, is China. And then he came to the US and then focused on his creativity a lot. I think he was always creative, even in the business world, but he's very humble and he will never recognize that he was very creative, very unique in what he was doing. And especially, I will tell you something else. I felt and take Pierre as a role model about perfection. He is a perfectionist. Everything he does is extremely detailed and thought through the details. Today, what he's offering to the world is his art in a very different, in a very 21st century fashion. And he's going to explain to us or remind you what he does. But then he's also into the cinema world. Is producing movies that I find to be incredible because he's interested in people like I am. So we share this together also, sharing that we are interested in people. That's my long introduction to say welcome to Pierre and to ask Pierre the first question about creativity, really. And it doesn't have to do with leaders, it has to do with human beings. How would you define creativity, Pierre, in your words, in 2025?
So first, Andre, thank you for this extremely kind and generous introduction. I'm very moved by this kind of introduction. So thank you so much. Uh, well, I have no idea how to define creativity. It's not a question I'm asking myself as an artist because I actually didn't choose to be an artist. One day, in a matter of a few days or just a few weeks, I realized I was an artist. I didn't choose it. And then, therefore, I had a constant flow of new ideas. Some of them interesting, some of them not interesting, but I have a constant flow of new ideas. And it's not the result of a conscious process. I'm not waking up every morning and say, Okay, I'm going to have two new ideas this morning. I have new ideas every single hour of every day. I can wake up at night and take notes of my cell phone because I have a new idea to write a poem or to write or to make an artwork. I'm taking notes when I'm in the New York City subway. What at every time of, of the day, I have a flow of creative ideas. I don't keep all of them, but just it is what it is. So I'm not well positioned to teach how to be creative because for me, it's just who am I? So I have, it's just a fact. I didn't choose it. So I just try to use it in the best possible way. But there is, at least for me, there is no process at all.
Oh,
Like
right.
a cat is a mammal, has fur, it doesn't choose to be like that.
Well, you're answering the question by saying my natural instinct is to be a creative individual walking through life with my creativity. So that creativity is constantly buzzing, constantly producing. But you were saying the word that I need now. Maybe that's allowing me to refine my question by saying, how do you channel this creativity of yours? And how does it translate into something that now become visible to the world?
That's a good question. So it's extremely hard, and I struggle a lot to channel my creativity. I have, I'm going to show you. So I have plenty of these notebooks.
Right.
So with all my, I don't know, like the camera is going to see it. No, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe I need to adjust.
Oh,
But
you completely
yeah, so I
disappeared.
have
Yeah.
plenty of these notebooks
Yes.
where
Me
I
too.
am every day writing out ideas. And I mean, the challenge for me is to organize all these ideas, to keep the good one, not to keep the one that I don't think are interesting, and at the end, to produce an artwork. And it's really a very challenging task because I can be stuck on an idea for months or years and finally discard the project, or sometimes everything fall into places really quickly and I can produce the artwork in a matter of weeks. And I mean, this is all my conscious work, how to organize the flow of ideas. And I think that's also an issue that entrepreneurs and people in business will have. So the difficulty is not to have ideas, it's how to organize the flow of ideas. And what I learned is that you have to let go the ideas that are not working. And too many times and with working on an art project, and in the end I was not like completely satisfied. It just didn't work as I wanted it to work. And I spent like months on the project. And at some point I say, okay, that's it's the outcome is not going to be good. So let's move on to the next idea until everything like falls
Oh,
nicely in place. And in particular, last year, I struggled a lot with some project I was working on. And in the end, I didn't choose to make an artwork because it just didn't work properly. So I just jumped to other ideas, and then, oh, everything falls in place nicely. And I was really happy with the result. So that's the challenge. So to answer your question, I'm not doing good at organizing ideas. This is a daily struggle.
are you okay? And you're alone in this journey, or do you have partners to give you feedback or validate what you do?
So, you know, being an artist is a very solitary work. You're doing artwork for yourself, and you feel blessed when other people appreciate your work and tell you, "Oh, I was very moved by this work." But basically, you're alone with your own ideas, and I'm doing art for myself primarily, and I'm thrilled when people actually collect it or watch it. The So I do not ask for like feedback when I'm in the creative process. I have feedback when the work is done, and
Right.
generally it's my network of fellow artists. So I'm constantly, you know, using social media and DMs talking with friends, artists about, oh, what's your last work, what you're working on. So we're giving feedback to each other. So
Okay.
if the feedback is sometimes I see it's not good, I'm not going to change the artwork. It is what it is, but I take into consideration for the next iteration and the next work.
Okay. Iteration. Okay, let's say a little bit, a few words about what you do, because there's some people who see you for the first time. Most of the people, I think, see you for the first time today. So, can I ask you just to describe in a few words
Yes.
what's the core of what you do? Because you do different things, but what is
Yes.
the
So
core?
at the core, I'm going to use a very pretentious and pedantic term. So I'm a text-based conceptual artist, which is, I apologize, it's very pedantic.
No,
So
no,
to make
doesn't sound
things simpler, I'm using text to tell stories in a visual manner. So I also consider myself a poet, but the visual aspect on the words matters. So I started to do this in a physical manner. So I was painting on a canvas, and I was putting text, quite large text on a canvas, telling little stories. And then about 5 years ago, I started to do this digitally, which is now mainly what I'm doing, but it's the same ideas, the same creative process. So when I have an idea in my mind, it starts by an image that shows different characters interacting. And here is the thing, I spent a lot of years to decide if I wanted to use painting, like to paint a visual representation of a scene, or to use photography and putting models and taking a picture, or to use the abstraction of text. And that was really a soul searching. And in the end, I saw that the image has this dangerously seductive aspect. And I thought it was more fun to use the abstraction of text and play with it to tell stories. So, well, I don't know how to paint like Vermeer, sadly, or Van Eyck, sadly, so I can't really paint the way I would like to do. But I mean, I try to use the same depths as we can find in these masters. And so I'm not at their level, but I am inspired by them, by using text to try to depict in a very accurate manner little scenes, a little story that I want to say, using exclusively text. That's what I do.
And you use the digital platform to do that.
Yes, I'm using
Right.
digital platforms, and it gives me more freedom to play with the letters and the characters. So using computers, you can add some glitch
Yeah.
effects on the text. You can play on the fonts, on how the text is appearing. You can play with the background, adding colors, adding effects. So there is more
Right.
parameters you can play with to display and showcase the text and the elements of language.
And there is, I mean, the fact also is that you are one of those who are using also the NFS, I think it's called, right? The
The
NFT,
NFT on the
NFT, sorry,
blockchain
NFT.
technology.
Right, right. And the blockchain to protect, in fact, the art, especially. Uh,
Yes,
and it becomes, of course, sometimes transactional because people acquire those artwork, and they own that artwork, and the ownership of that artwork is probably the most protected ownership. By the way, it's something to say because today everything is very difficult to keep authorship of. Very, we are in a world of thieves and alternations and all of those things. But it's very protected thanks to blockchain. And I think you made the right choice when you picked that also in the same time. So there's a lot of things, in fact, with Pierre's art that is involved that's very applicable to this century. And he took all the advantage of the technology of the blockchain space and all the functionalities to make that art standing and become, how can I say, protected. The intellectual protection is very
Yeah.
solid. It's very solid indeed. Uh, so where do we find it so that people can visualize it? I don't want to take the time; it's on too short.
So the easiest way is to check out my website, which is pierregervois.com, or just Google my name and you will find plenty of
Okay,
examples. That's the easiest way.
all right, and you see his name on the bottom
Yeah, you
left.
can Google my name and you find plenty of websites with example of my work.
Very good, very good. Okay, so that's good. And I was thinking when you said about the way you are bringing your and selecting your imaging and how things are coming to your mind for the creativity side. I want to say something you did not probably expect you to tell you, but it's something that comes to the coaching that I do with leaders every day, and it's the concept of visualization. Visualization for any responsible person, not necessarily a leader, someone who's responsible, and that person wants to master somehow the space and the time. When that person takes the precaution, takes the step back, the reflection, before in moving into the space of something, a difficult conversation, a challenge with anything, you just eventually know where you're going to have that challenge, a meeting room, a place in a cafe, perhaps, in the street. You are going to have this tomorrow at 5 o'clock, a meeting with someone. Why don't you just close your eyes, visualize yourself into that situation, and now bring yourself, who you are, and picture yourself in the situation, the best of who you can be, right, in the situation. I use a lot of that. I ask people to close their eyes. I ask people to think and imagine the image of themselves in a situation that's going to be challenging. You have no idea how powerful this is. And this is an acting technique. Actors do this. Actors do this to go into the character, to the part that they're going to play on stage, under the spotlight, because they know that the audience is going to see them. They want to design themselves, in other words, for that moment. So it's not spontaneous at all. Thanks to visualization, they can design their executive presence. They can design the experience they're going to create for the audience. Like you are already visualizing something, or a painter knows exactly, or not exactly, but has an image of what they want to paint on the canvas. And sometimes they take a pencil and start to draw, and then they will paint over the drawing because they had an original picture of what they want. The last time you're going to be very surprised. I think, to my memory, the last time I interviewed an artist, you're going to be very impressed. Everybody's going to be very impressed with who I was interviewing. It was a long time ago. It was in Geneva, in Switzerland, and I was in a presidential suite upstairs of the President Hotel interviewing Salvador Dali.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Right. Yes. And I have still the recording with me. And we were talking a lot about visualization. I remember that because I asked him to imagine a hotel because I was in the hotel industry. Imagine a Dali hotel. Please describe me what a Dali hotel looks like with his French and Spanish accent and his crazy voice, right? And his wife was right next to him. Yeah,
Gala?
Gala was there, and his agent. So there were three people: an agent, a Spanish guy, him, and his wife. And he was imagining in front of me this hotel that everything was moving, the walls were moving, all those things that he was saying. But imaging and looking at a big artist in front of me, describing what he visualizes, it's something to see. And when you say that, I imagine you thinking the same way. So that has to do with art. That has to do with creativity, right? All right.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to throw this Dali thing to take a big medal on my chest, but it was a hard work to get him to
I can imagine.
be my interviewee. But I still have this recording. So now back to Pierre Gervois. uh, you also teach, but before this thing about teaching, what about the movies that you do? That's also because
So I don't, to be
yeah.
very accurate, I don't do movie, I produce them.
You produce it.
That means that I am not in charge of the artistic content of
Okay.
these movies, which are directed by the award-winning documentary filmmaker, Mrs. Christelle Bois. She's a fantastic interviewer, and she's so these these films and TV show are made with on Amazon Prime Video. It's called The Story of Art in America, and it's we're interviewing artists in all different disciplines all across cities in America. And it's done by the film director and the executive producer of the show, but all the credit for the quality of the film is due to Christelle Bois.
Okay. Yeah, okay, fine. That's very humble. Okay. So you're also teaching. So what are you teaching?
So I'm teaching media and public relations at New York University, and I really, I absolutely love teaching. That really one of my favorite activities ever. So it's always a joy to be with students and to interact with them. And I try to bring more than, you know, the academic curriculum and talking about what we're supposed to talk. You know, I try to help them on improve their leadership skills and things like how to do public speaking, how to present an idea in a convincing manner, which I think might be the most important part of the class. Like, just how do you convince, how do you present something in front of an audience? And something I am surprised that some students are struggling with that, and I think it's important for me to help them to to better convey their ideas, because whatever business or situation they're going to be in, if you have good ideas, if you're creative, but if you don't know how to sell them, it's not gonna work.
Okay, I need some of your teaching too, how to sell, how to PR something. Very, very difficult these days. But good. Yeah, I completely follow you. I will say something to you now. I go back to our beginning of the conversation. And again, the goal of this show is to see how you impact people. And when you started to say, I do this art for me, and then I'm very blessed that someone is going to see it and give me feedback. I think you're making a mistake.
Go ahead.
And I think, yeah, I think you make, I mean, it's not a mistake. I think you're seeing yourself a little bit too selfishly, because I don't think you're selfish at all. First, you teach people to how to communicate and give a message out there. So that's already something that shows that you're not into yourself. You are very much into giving something out there. And I, the first time we met here, I mean, on the context of the show, is you were saying that too, I remember. So that's very, very consistent today. But in the same time, it's catching me again the same way, saying, no, an artist is giving. It's not at all for himself. You might not have that in mind when you are creating your art. I don't know. And you say you present this as it's a happenstance, a coincidence that someone is going to come across this creative work that you did, but don't tell me that you do not have at all an audience in mind that is going to be seen by other eyes and that you're giving something to the world.
So I want to contradict you, dear Andre. Actually, I do not have any audience in mind. I know some of my fellow artists do, and every artist has a different process. But the work, when I'm looking back of my work, um, I don't think that in a few cases we were influenced by the environment, by the audience, and in some cases in the back of our mind when I was creating a few pieces, I was having kind of a possible audience in mind, and like, okay, maybe it will be more aimed toward this particular audience, and this is not my best work. The work that I really liked the most, and in the end had it impacted people, because I saw the feedback when people kindly say, "Oh, I really like this piece." I made these pieces absolutely out of nowhere. There was no audience in mind
Wow.
whatsoever. So I understand there are different appreciations and analysis of artwork. And I think there is how art critic and the outside world is going to see an artwork, which is one thing, and how
Okay.
the artist is producing a work. This is another thing. I am really making art. It's just out of nowhere. I am seeing something. I'm a political news nerd. I am watching every political debate. I'm watching nonstop
Really? Oh my God.
news absolutely all the time, constantly
Seriously.
following politics,
Wow.
and I absorb all this information, and then I'm going to get an idea and produce an artwork. And the work that I like the most, it's made, I have zero audience in my, I'm not like, oh, I want to shock some people or I want to appeal to these people. It's just I want to say something, and this is it.
Okay.
So, and I mean, we're all different as artists. Some
Sure.
artists or really have a particular audience in mind. I do not. And also, some of my work, I know it's considered as political, as socially engaged. I made pieces about women's rights, about political issues in the United States that are, and I choose my words, that are considered as politically engaged or socially engaged. But for me, it's an artwork. It happened to be seen as politically engaged, but for me, it's an artwork. It's
An
an
expression.
abstract artwork, and then it's seen as, but I am not a political activist, I'm not a social justice activist, but yes, my work can be seen and interpreted as such, but that's the freedom and the decision of the viewer. It's not
Okay.
mine.
Okay. If there is a Wikipedia, or if it will be in 50 years from now or 100 years from now, and there will be Pierre Gervois on the page, what is it going to say?
I mean, I cannot answer this question because it's not for me.
No.
Honestly, it's not for me to answer. I think that would be extremely pretentious
No,
to
no, no.
to answer this question. I'm just like doing
I
my
was
work
expecting this kind of answer for
in
sure.
my
I was,
studio
yeah, yeah.
for myself.
Well, I'll tell you what. There will be something about your DNA, something unique about you. Yeah, there's a code, a Gervois code in what you do. There's an
So
identity in what you do.
it's that when you look at a scene, when you look at a group of people interacting in a particular environment, I think that everything matters. So when I am observing two human beings interacting, I am observing not only what these people are saying, what they're thinking about, I am observing the physical objects that surround them. I am observing the physical context in
Yeah.
which they move. So the building they are matters, the clothes they wear matter, what they eat matter. Everything matters in the same way. What they're saying, what they're thinking, the objects that surround them, the socio-political context in which they are, everything matter at the exact same level.
Ever.
The gray sweater you wear matters exactly to describe you as what you're saying and what you're thinking. Every single element that can be used to characterize you as a human being at a particular given time matter. I see you're surrounded by books. These books matter. They're part of you. So I want to know about what are these books? What are the story in these books? These books are on your shelf. Why is this particular shelf? Did you bought this shelf? Did you found this shelf in the trash? Is this free stuff? I found a lot of free stuff in New York City. Where did you bought your gray sweater? Why did you choose to wear a gray sweater and not a green sweater? What's the story? What is the story of the shirt you're wearing? Was it a gift? Did you bought it? Did you were happy with the price? You're surrounded by objects. Every object has a story that is as important as what you're saying. Everything matters at the same level.
At the
That's
same level.
what
You
I
remind me.
want to do.
No, you remind me in the theater. I was very much in theater when I was young, and one author who has a style of drama is Bertolt Brecht from Germany. You should. I don't know if you know Bertolt Brecht, but
I
you
know
should
the name. I have not read anything from him.
you should have a little bit of a look because when you describe all of that, what you're describing and the way you see it is very, very similar. And it's a very visionary type of thing. So thank you for sharing that. Well, as we are reaching, unfortunately, the last minute of our show, I would like to leave you, in fact, the last word. But something about even if things can look the same, have the same, sorry, the same equivalent manner level, uh, mattering level. What can change the world to a better world?
I think the best way to change the world is not by overthinking it.
Right.
I think is trying to be first a decent person is going to
Mhm.
make a lot of impact instead of saying having some grandiose and grandiloquent ideas. Just if everyone wants to be a decent man, a decent father, a decent husband, a decent friend, a respectful person to everybody, I think will have a lot of impact. And I think if we all choose to make the effort to be to respect everybody, whether it's the janitor or the CEO, and deeply thinking that everybody deserves the exact same respect, which is not the case in the business world. Sadly, we're going
That,
to make a big step by
yes,
changing the world. I think being a decent person, working hard to be a decent person, is going to have a big impact.
yes. That's, oh, I cannot, add anything to this and agree more. Thank you, Fia, for coming back. I hope you're coming back again, if you don't mind. You'll be,
I mean, it's a pleasure to have this conversation with you,
thank
Andre.
you.
I enjoy a lot being with you. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you for coming. Okay, Pierre. See you